young friends. We are here today to discuss the importance of English. English is the lingua franca of the world, and the reason for it gaining this status is perhaps because it is used by over 100 countries in the world. And even countries which do not speak English as a native language use English extensively for transacting businesses. Hence, it is also considered as the business language. Precisely 90% of the countries, they use English as a second language, which again shows that English is fast catching up with the lingua franca of the world. And if you take at the advent of English, it is in 4 periods. The first is the old, second the middle, third is modern, and the later modern. If you take the years, this is from 500 to 1100. This is from 1100 AD, of course. 1100 AD to 1500. This is from 1500 to 1800, and this is the language we speak, 1800 to the present. Now, if you take basically, let us forget the first two. If you take a comparison of this modern and the later modern, the difference is not so much in grammar or syntax or structure, but the difference is in vocabulary and usage. And what is this difference? The later modern English has infused a lot of new words, and these new words happen because of various reasons. The first is the Industrial Revolution. The second is the expansive growth in technology. Added to this, there is also another factor, and that factor is that Britain has been ruling over 1/4 of the world's surface, and in the process it has borrowed words from almost every language and made them its own. Today, if you look at English, it has borrowed words from almost every language in the world. Not only this, it has become crucial, a breadwinner for all the young students of today. Reason being, it has been adopted as the working language. Because it is considered to be the working language, all Asian groups, they use this language for their businesses. Apart from this, 98% of researchers, they use English as their medium of research. For all these reasons, it has become inevitable for us to learn English and then learn it well. So the next question that arises is, how do we learn English well? And this is where the L, S, R, W skills come into picture. Before I discuss these skills, I would like to quote some research statistics by Algar Rosenfeld. He conducted an analysis and he said that these 4 dimensions, namely listening, speaking, reading, and writing, occupy majority of role in our communication process. 40% importance is given to listening. 30% importance is taken by speaking skills. 16% by reading, and a mere 9% by writing. Understand the essential difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is what we do mechanically with our ears. So like I hear the honking of a vehicle, I hear the birds chirp. But listening, it involves other faculties like, of course, ears, and then our mind, because it thinks about the matter that we hear, and then our eyes. Interesting, isn't it? That we also listen with our eyes. How do we listen with our eyes? You look at a speaker and you actually hear or listen to whatever they have to say. But then you also see something, their body language, their gestures, their eye contact, which is also verbal communication and non-verbal communication at a single go. So this is where the listening has to be more focused, it has to be more understandable, and it has to be interpreted. So if I have to define listening, it probably is the ability to receive, process, and probably interpret messages, both verbal and non-verbal. So that is the difference between listening and hearing. Discriminative and comprehensive. So what do we mean by discriminative? You would be astonished to know that this hearing or this listening starts even before birth. When a child is in the womb, he listens to the sounds from outside. He is unable to interpret it, but he receives it nevertheless. At your age, I could probably give you an example of, you listen to an audio clipping, and the audio clipping is perhaps in a foreign language, and you don't make any sense of the dialogues or you don't understand what they're saying. But what could you understand? You could understand the situation, you could understand whether the speaker is old, young, or a child. You could understand whether it's emotional or it is a heated argument. So all this is discriminative learning, because you don't listening, because you don't really understand the meaning of it. Nevertheless you listen, nevertheless you receive. So it is only sounds which are heard at this process. If you take comprehensive listening, it is for interpreting messages. And here the messages are Catholic, meaning you understand it in a broader sense. You also look at the body language, you also look at the gestures, the eye contact, and you keep analyzing the information that you receive. So these two, they are the prerequisites for specific listening. Now we come to the specific listening types. Here we have three. The first is informational. The second is critical. And the third is empathetic or therapeutic. Now, looking at the informational specific listening type, where is it used? It is used when you have to complete tasks. For example, you are given an audio clipping, a basic test for IELTS or TOEFL, and you are asked to answer a few questions after listening to the audio clip. Now here you are actually listening for completing a task. Similarly, preparing for your examinations. All this listening, when you listen to your professors giving you a list of do's and don'ts for the exams and things like that, this is informational listening. It is a specific type of listening which aids students. Now if you take critical, here you actually try to logically examine the message. So it is not just for listening, just for completing a task or fetching marks in the exam. It is for logically examining the message. Where exactly would we use such kind of listening? It is probably when you want to solve a problem, probably when you want to glean or differentiate between different problems or crises that you actually come across. Empathetic and therapeutic, it is trying to understand emotions and feelings. A very challenging kind of listening. Who uses this? The counselors, the therapists, the psychiatrists. Because here they have to have a better understanding of their patients, the inner idea of their patients, the feelings of their patients, the emotions of their patients, and then probably prescribe medicines according to the situation in which the patient is. So this kind of specific empathetic therapeutic listening is used by counselors, therapists and psychiatrists. So these three are the basic types. Where do we actually use these listening types? Suppose you have your earphones the moment you get into your bus and you start listening to songs. So listening to music. This is appreciative type of listening. Rapport. You are in an interview with your employer. You want to get the job. So you try to negotiate. You try to brand yourself. You try to sell yourself. So it is this, your interview or negotiations. Rapport. You build a kind of relationship. You build a kind of deal. You close a deal. The third is selective. This is actually a negative kind of listening. And when you have the selective listening, you are biased. You are biased for various reasons. You are biased because you feel the speaker is not up to your standards. You are biased because you have preconceived notions. You are biased because you have other tasks in mind. Whatever may be the reason, it is you have a biased version of listening. And because of that, this is nothing but failing communication. So communication fails when you actually are selective in your listening. To sum up, the main type of listening we have discriminative and then comprehensive. These two are prerequisites for specific listening types like we just saw earlier, informational, critical, and then therapeutic or empathetic. And then these are the other listening types which students normally come across, and we should take care to see where we need to actually improve our listening techniques and how we can do it. Why is it that we always fail to listen and mostly hear? It's because of certain barriers. If we can eliminate these barriers, all of us will be very good communicators. How do we eliminate these barriers, or how do we identify these barriers? The first thing is probably you are listening to more than one conversations. For example, you are watching a TV show and then you are talking over the cell phone with your friend. So you actually can't do justice to both, and this is where it becomes a barrier. So your communicating is not that effective. Similarly, if you are in a reclining position, meaning sleepy, lying down and then talking to your friend or interviewer or your professor, your the energy levels are low, and then the barriers are very, very clearly visible. Second thing is, suppose you have preconceived notions, meaning I know this lecture is not going to be very interesting, kind of. You come to the hall with those kind of notions. Then again it creates a barrier because you are not 100% into it. Then you find the speaker either interactive or unattractive. Which again, here what happens is you are concentrating on the speaker but not on the message. So when you do that, your message is diluted. So this is again one barrier. Fourth thing is when you are of course unwell, tired. Fifth is when your mind is preoccupied. Today I have to attend a marriage. I need to meet my friend. I have a party. So when you go to listen to a speaker with these notions, all these are barriers. And if you can identify these barriers and perhaps work on them, listening would be a wonderful skill that you would have acquired. And in the process, you would have become a very good communicator. My next skill for elucidation is speaking. Second in importance, 30% according to Alder-Rosenfeld. Now, what is speaking? It is the ability to express an idea, to put forth your thought in a concise, clear and compact manner. It should also be logically construed so that you are not flawed. What happens is, if you do not keep these points in mind, there is every possibility that your message that you have spoken could be misunderstood or misinterpreted. So it's very important that when you speak, your speech has to be clear, concise and logical. Now, if that is the case, most of the students today find this to be a daunting task. So why is speaking so daunting? What is the kind of feeling that students have when they are asked to come out and introduce themselves or talk a minute on some topic? So the second skill that we need to actually learn after our listening skill is a speaking skill. It occupies 30% of importance in our pie chart that we just saw earlier, that was given to us by the research analysis of Alder Rosenfeld. Here, students feel that speaking is a daunting task, probably because they are shy, probably because they lack confidence, probably because they are not good listeners, or probably because they are afraid to be heard. Whatever the reasons, I personally feel that the most important factor for a speaker to feel it daunting is the attitude. If this can be taken care of, I think speakers can be very good when they change their attitude. So what kind of attitude am I talking about? When you want people to hear you, you get a platform, you have to make the most of the platform. How? Now I'll give you a few tips. That you could use to be a good speaker. First, know your material or topic well. Conduct a research, maybe collect or glean statistics from various sources and make notes whenever you're reading so that you actually have the best material that you can speak of. Second thing is, know your audience. Are you speaking in front of a bunch of school kids? Are you speaking in front of professors? Are you speaking in front of your age group, your contemporaries? It's very important to know your audience before you plan your speech. Third is, know your place. Are you delivering the speech of yours in your classroom? Is it the seminar hall? Is it the auditorium in some college? Or is it an open ground where you are attending a tech fest? So all these factors are very important if you have to be a good speaker. Next thing is plan. What is it that you have to plan? Your content and then organize it logically. A logical presentation will ensure that you make a good speaker and whatever you deliver will be well received by your audience. So if you can keep these tips in mind, it is very essential and it is important that you know these things before you make your speech. The next thing is always ensure that when you make a speech, the words you use are not jargon. Because you may be talking to a motley group, a diverse group, where you have all kinds of people and they will not be able to understand this jargon. So ensure that your language is simple, lucid and clear. This is very important when you are actually talking about speaking. Where do you use speaking? Almost every day. You speak if you have to maybe enter the class late. You speak if you have to seek permission from your principal, maybe for conducting some kind of competition in your college. You speak because you have to, if you take an IELTS or a TOEFL. You speak because you are your class leader and you happen to instruct your classmates about different going-ons that happen in your college regularly. So speaking is a day-to-day process that is inevitable. If that is the case, more exposure will actually help you to speak better. Now the third point in my agenda in the list of skills is reading, which occupies 16% importance. Now, Why should you read? You know why you should speak. You know why you should listen. Now why should you read? Reading is inevitable because as grads or post-grads, you need to read extensively to glean a lot of information. You need to read extensively to probably present seminars, publish a paper. You needed to read extensively probably to prepare your project, and you need to read extensively to also prepare for your competitive exams like your CAT, GRE, GATE and whatnot. So if this is how reading is the most important element of students, let us understand the different styles of reading. You have three different styles: scanning, skimming and detailed reading. Now, what is scanning? Scanning is you read quickly to glean parts of text or the main points. You want the main points in your comprehension, so you don't have time to read the entire composition word by word. So what do? You scan. And how do you do it? You read the first line and you read the last line and you make a general import of what that passage actually conveys. You look for signpost words and then you conclude what kind of passage it is. So this scanning is important for understanding parts of text and for understanding the main point. So it is read quickly. Skimming. Skimming is you skip unimportant parts and you only pick important points. Like you have a question, the question has what does the word dash in the passage mean? So you are looking for that word. So what do? You skim. You don't look at the other lines at all. So that is skimming. So you read quickly, but you skip unwanted parts. You only read those parts where you feel you get the point. Detailed reading. Here you read word by word. And this reading, it helps you to understand the text. It helps you to examine logically the sequence of the text. It helps you to analyze. For example, you have been given an abstract and then your professor asks you to talk for 2 minutes on the abstract that is given to you. Here, unless you read it word by word and unless you understand the import, unless you analyze the abstract, it would be difficult for you to talk on it for 2 minutes. Or you see a medical report. That would be, the doctor would have a detailed reading of the report. He would not skim or scan through it. Because he would have to prescribe medicines, definitely he would have to go through it word by word. So this is how the styles of reading, you can adapt any style depending on the situation you are actually in. So next I would like to discuss the reading approach. Now this reading approach is, again you have two. One is surface approach and one is depth approach. Now in surface approach, what happens is you only memorize all your examination answers. You hardly understand what they mean. But then you memorize and you write answers and you get marks. That's a different story. So this is, you are actually doing surface approach. Whereas when you talk of depth approach, what you are doing here is you are scrutinizing. You are examining in detail. So the depth approach is used probably by researchers, by maybe postgraduate students or students of higher learning, where it is imperative that they understand, analyze and scrutinize the subject. Mere memorization will not take them anywhere. Whereas normally the approach that students use is the surface approach. The surface approach is only useful probably for exams or tests, but then the knowledge part is still a big question mark. So if you can change your approach, especially for your core subjects or important subjects that you feel are very essential for your understanding of engineering, I think it is a depth approach that all of you have to follow, so that it helps you gain more knowledge when compared to the shallow approach or the surface approach. So to sum up, reading is important because you have to read extensively to compile your reports, to publish papers, to prepare projects, to attend your competitive exams. For all these things you need to read extensively, because reading is something which gives you an insight of the subject that you have to actually, where you need to be tested. The last is the writing. And this skill occupies a mere 9% on our pie chart. Yet, it is one of the skills which I am afraid to say that students of late have neglected. A recent survey showed that students tend to use the SMS language while applying for job posts. If you want the company, Mayer and Brown, and they said a whopping 25% of grads, they are not uneducated, they are not youngsters, they are in the age group of 20 to 24. And these people, they use 25% of them use SMS language for applying for jobs. So that is really a mockery of your academic maybe personality. So when you have to write, what is it that you have to keep in mind? You have to keep in mind the different styles. It is a communication, written communication, here again you have three factors: the style, or first I would say the structure, the style and the content. Now, when you are looking at the structure, what is it? Are your headings very bold, and are they interesting? Are they pithy, meaning are they short, are they terse, are they brief? Is your layout neat, or do you have lot of spaces? Do you have hodgepodge? Have you made a hodgepodge of your organization of material? So all these things, they come under structure. Have you unnecessarily highlighted or bolded certain kind of language that is not required? Style. Style is nothing but what kind of language you use, how eloquent it is. Is what you have written very neat and elegant? Did you make proper choice of words while choosing? Because see, you have informal writing, you have formal writing. Are you writing because you want to publish a paper? Are you writing because you are writing a formal letter to your employer to asking for a job post? Or are you writing to your friend, inviting him over for your sister's marriage? Right, it all depends on the style. The style is different for these three different situations. If it is academic writing, you have to stick to the technical writing, where you stick to your know-hows of the technical aspect of the project. If it is your job application, it is your abilities that you have to highlight. It is your maybe do's and don'ts or the X factor in you that you have to highlight, which is of course in a formal style. And if you are writing to a friend, it is informal yet polite. I mean, when you are writing, you can't use expressions like dude and wanna and kind of language, because that is again not accepted when you are writing letters, even though they are informal. Content. Is your content tailor-made to the topic that you have chosen? So, tailor-making your content is an important aspect of good writing. If you beat around the bush, people are not interested in your presentation at all. So, you have to make sure that you tailor-make the content. Check for punctuation or grammatical errors. Use a spell check wherever required, or the grammar check, whatever. Ensure that you don't have any punctuation errors or grammar errors. The I see the I this way when you write, but wherever it occurs individually, it has to be this way. So these things are very, very important when talking of content. Also, editing. Once you are done, editing your content is the most important factor. In fact, I suggest you write your content, sleep over it, maybe next day morning, edit it, and you will know your mistakes well. So this part of writing again is important because it is one aspect where you actually brand yourself. You send your resume without a cover letter, that speaks volumes of your personality. You send your CV without any kind of application with it, that speaks a lot about your personality. So these are very, very important when you take writing into account.